the garden and I will show you kind of what's going on. We're having a rare break in the rain, but it is definitely coming back here in a few minutes. So my cilantro, I have weeds starting to grow in here again. This is like a little bittercress weed. And the cilantro is doing okay. This one I cut a bunch of leaves off and dried them, and it's coming back out. But we are having temperatures, it's so weird. We are in the beginning of December and our temperatures are going to be in the upper 50s to 60s, and the lows are going to be in the high 40s into the mid 50s, which is so bizarre. Normally by this time of the year we have had a killing frost, and we've had a couple of nips. As you can tell, these are flowers that are an annual and they're not going to make it. That's okay, we gave them a try. The lettuces, they're hanging in there because they can handle a little bit more cool. The spinach, got some bug bites on those. I probably need to put down some more buggo, or sluggo I mean, which is an organic slug bait. This is the other bed that has cilantro in it. And you can see the volunteer potatoes. They're really getting chewed up by the slugs. It doesn't bother me too much because, as I had mentioned in a previous video, these will get killed when we have a frost. But usually here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't have frosts that freeze the ground like hard to where they would die. So the tubers live in the beds. If you were with me for the video where I planted my garlic, this is how far up the garlic is. And this is very normal this time of year here. Even if we get a frost or a deep freeze, it doesn't affect the garlic and it's just fine. And this right here and this one over here is my volunteer celery that just came up from seed because I had some in here a few years ago. And because this time of the year the white cabbage moth is pretty much non-existent, I have uncovered most of my cauliflower, but I don't think the temperatures, unless this mild few weeks that we have kick them into high gear, are going to do much. And it makes me wonder, even because there's not going to be any sun per se. It's going to be all these lovely gray clouds. So we will see. They're wrapping down here, but when I opened up the wrap, I didn't really see much of a head of cauliflower. So this will all, I just rip off some greens here and there and the chickens get to eat these. Over here to the broccoli, I do have little side shoot heads that I probably will come out and harvest here a little bit later today if we get another break in the rain. But for those of you who do not know, I have a flower and veg farm. It's a small one. And then I also love to craft, and I used to do craft fairs and used to sell things online in an Etsy shop. I'm kind of getting back into that. But this time of the year, as you can see, there isn't a heck of a lot going on in the garden, and because it rains here a lot in the Pacific Northwest, there isn't a whole lot to do outside, because if you try to weed, you just pull up a big old clump of mud, and it's really hard to get it separated from the roots. Here is my parsley. There's little gnats flying around everywhere. So if you see a crafting video pop up and it's not your thing, just ignore it. Know that I'm not completely changing my channel. I'm just adding crafting videos in here and there just to kind of offset what is not going on in the garden. And look at this. This is my dahlia, and that just shows you that we have not had any kind of a killing frost here, because dahlias, if you know anything about them, they are very sensitive to frost. And this one's still going strong. The blooms aren't super pretty because I think the bugs are enjoying the blooms. And I think over in England, and correct me if I'm wrong, they say dahlia. I always found it really fun, the differences in the way we pronounce words. But I have my flat leaf parsley and my curly parsley. And my girl's talking to me, looking for additional snacks. And here we even have a volunteer snapdragon that's coming up in my bed. Again, that will die back in a freeze, and it's just going strong. And I thought I would show you, this is the inside of my chicken coop. They have 2 roosting bars. I cleaned it out the other day. They've already given me several presents over there. And then over here, That is their nesting boxes. It's an old shed that I had, and I got a newer shed for all of my garden stuff, so this became the girls' chicken coop. This is my entry door, and then that's their door out into where we just were when we fed them. I didn't film it because I just didn't have my phone on me, and sometimes I do that. I just get involved in my normal projects, and I don't know how exciting cleaning a chicken coop is, but if you ever want to watch me do that, let me know in the comments, and I will definitely record it next time. We're down by the greenhouse now. These are some of my plants that are perennials that will just live over in pots. I will kind of winterize them a little bit more once we get a freeze forecast coming up. But you can see this is one of my soaker water trays. I emptied it about 4 days ago, and just with the rain we had yesterday, it's almost completely full. So now I will show you what my greenhouse looks like in the off season. Oh, chaos! I just grabbed all of the hoses, I drained them and pulled them out, and they're just sitting right there. And I have boxes everywhere because I am going to be using the boxes for mulching in one of my fields. That is the old plastic. We replaced the plastic on this greenhouse earlier this spring. And then this is the station where I just kind of mix up my potting mixes. I do my own seed starting mix, and then when I transplant them up into bigger pots, I also do my own mix. And down here is my stash. If you happen to catch one of those videos before, I got this whole pile of stuff. I would say pushing it at $100 because I got everything on clearance at Walmart, and we're talking 50 cents a bag to $1 a bag, and it was the most amazing score I think I've ever gotten at Walmart in the clearance section. And those are some tomatoes I brought in to try to ripen, and that's what happened. So it was a bust. I'm going to go throw cardboard box and all into the compost pile. And here is a view of the greenhouse from the other direction. This is actually a box of a whole nother layer of plastic film, which is the stuff that's on the top of the greenhouse right here. And we bought it just to have it on hand because I had a greenhouse out at my parents' and it collapsed in a snowstorm, but there are some salvageable parts, so we may be putting up another smaller hoop house with that. But if you are interested in watching a video of me cleaning up the greenhouse and tidying it all up, I usually do it when the weather's not horrible outside, but maybe it's pouring down rain or it's just too cold and the sun is shining and it feels like it's summer in here. Let me know down in the comments and I will definitely show you that process. But yeah, I will take you down before we close the video out to the one growing field where I do a lot of the flowers and stuff, and I'll just let you see what that looks like. And on the way down, my panicle hydrangeas, all but one. I have one that is not a panicle in the back. You can see the blooms have all died back. This is kind of the sad time of year for me because there isn't a whole lot going on. And yeah, I have weeds. You see how these beds are just trashed. The nice thing about these raised beds, though, is that it's very easy to weed them because the soil is so loose and fluffy. And I will come out here once we get a break in the rain and I will weed these. I need to redo the deer fencing because they have kind of smashed it. But again, I have dahlias in here, and all of these are anemones. And even though they bloom in the spring, they always put up a flush of green in the fall and winter. But again, they're a corm and they're down in the soil, so they will be fine. So here we are coming down here. You can see I started doing work. I started pulling out the posts. I didn't get super far. Let me get this gate open here. And these are the zinnias, and back there, the marigolds, and the rudbeckia and the ageratum that I left in here. And I do that every year because the birds pick through and eat bugs, and they shelter in here. And you can hear the birds in the background. I love to have them around. For the most part, they are non-destructive. And here is some of my cress that I planted. But it's a cool season crop, and it likes the cooler weather. And so as long as we don't have a freeze, I might get some flowers off of this. Almost looks like I have little bloom heads trying to form. but it may not. It was pretty a late season plant, and I just planted it because I already had it going. My status is looking a little worse for wear, but here in the Pacific Northwest, I will try to show you down here again. See the greenery down there? The plant is still nice and healthy, and a lot of times these will winter over if we don't have too hard of a winter. And so I think this year I'm going to leave the flower heads. Most of the time I chop them off, but I find if you leave all the flower stalks on here, it tends to prevent them from the freeze from getting to the major part of the plant, and I've had better success that way. Straw flowers, they are also a cool crop, and they are still blooming. But because it's cold and wet, or cool and wet I should say, the blooms are closed, but they will open up a little bit more. I could actually come down and harvest a whole bunch of these and dry them, which I may do. Have to bring them into the house to get them dry. But it's funny, I had a viewer comment about how I call my flowers crops, and I do because I grow them as a crop for sale. And I was telling her that rarely do I say pick flowers anymore because I'm basically just harvesting when I come out here and do stuff. I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a view this morning of what's going on in the garden at the end of the fall heading into winter. That is an apple tree loaded with some apples right there. The deer come through and munch on those multiple times a day. I've got birds chirping. This is my other growing field. All of that green right there is where the corn was, and the weeds just take over like wildfire here. And again, I have not pulled some of the weeds out of here and deadheaded any of the plants. I will probably wait till spring to do that, just to get it all cleaned up. So just giving you a parting shot of how pretty it is this morning with a little break in the rain. The sun coming up there, a little bit of blue sky. And we'll pan over here, what I call my little wooded section, and you see how the sky is just getting darker because it's gonna rain, so I better get back in the house. But thanks for hanging out with me. I do have a crafting video coming up if you're interested in that. It'll be on Monday. Otherwise, I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.